thank you so much for those builds. You know, we're going to turn it over to Malay, who's going to continue on. We've got a number of questions that have come in. We're going to also check if there's others, and we'll continue on in our Q&A session with everybody.
Thanks, Cindy. A couple of questions actually that I see, and the first one would be to both of you in a way. But Colleen, especially to you, the question is, sales has been modernizing year over year. What are the top issues your CROs are dealing with that you have seen so far?
The top issues CROs are dealing with, well, revenue generation in the face of increased competition is one of the biggest issues that my CRO clients, and I don't just mean increased competition, direct competition, I mean increased indirect competition. So, you know, companies there's more options for companies to buy more solutions than ever before, whether they compete with you directly or indirectly. And so CROs are challenged with that. They, you know, because of course they have targets. And in fact, in some of my legacy clients, they've got growth targets in shrinking markets. So that's a real challenge for them because they know because of improvements in their industry, that customers use less of the product and there's nothing they can do about that. So how do you grow 10% in a market that's shrinking 6%? So that's a huge issue. And so I see that data they need. At the same time, CROs are also struggling with having to increase targets without increasing sales teams. And actually, this is something I'm excited about and passionate about because I have felt for far too long, companies have rolled out technology and sales enablement tools to their sales teams without expecting a return on investment. You know, when automotive companies rolled out automation to the manufacturing process, they expected a return on investment, and there was workforce reductions because of it or quota increases, right, in terms of the number of cars they can produce. We haven't seen that kind of thing yet on CRM or other enablement tools, but it's happening. And so now CEOs are saying to their CROs, yeah, you know what, we want you to grow this year by 20%, but with additional salespeople. Or one of my clients has an 80% growth target this year. They're not getting 80% more salespeople, right? They might be getting 20% more salespeople, but their targets are going to have to move from 2 million to 3 million. And in order to do that, they need better access to data, they need better tools, and they need a more efficient and effective sales team.
Yeah, just, I would echo for sure the, challenge of increased top line revenue growth, and it's top line, right? Adding net new. Obviously, with the example that you've mentioned, if you've got a declining market base and your costs, that's kind of a recipe either to acquire new capabilities, because maybe, it's a broader business model discussion. And you're right in the sense of the co-opetition and looking in all directions all at once. One of the other observations that we would have in terms of what we experience, but obviously it's the nature of what we do at SalesChoice, is clearly the quality of the data is so critical to AI, right? That's why we exist, is in terms of that. I think the other piece that, we see for sure, and we've seen for quite some time, you're not necessarily going to get incremental headcount to achieve that plan. But what we've seen, unfortunately, in many global accounts, whether it's large enterprise or mid-market, they don't put enough of the value engineering skills, right? Like what I'm talking about are deep process value data experts on the design of those end-to-end, I'm using the words carefully here, end-to-end processes, and recognize how important the big vision is there. So it's no longer about the sales channel. It's not just it's the marketing, and it's the customer service, it's the admin and the payroll and the billing. But so often we've got fragmentation, as you know, out there with different legacy systems. But that highway that's unified is so critical to get to the levels of performance that can really drive the optimization. Otherwise, it's really hard and probably not realistic. I don't always see the depth of those skills going into the sales groups in the sales ops teams that are needed for those end-to-end thinking. It'd be good to compare notes in terms of what you've seen there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't even know where to begin.
A good laugh is a good way to begin.
There, oh, you know, there's so much going on, and you know, I think one of the things that CROs, well, and I shouldn't just say CRO, you know, it's interesting you use that term because the minority of my customers actually have someone in that title, right? They have a VP of sales, and many of them still have a VP of sales and a VP of marketing. So they're more siloed than a, you know, what we're calling a CRO might be. But I think that what's so critical to keeping them focused and to keeping the teams accelerated, especially in shrinking marketplaces, is to go, it sounds funny, but go back to the basics and look at, don't let the data overwhelm you, like, and make sure that you're only collecting and looking at the data that can actually drive your sales forward. So making smart choices. So for example, a local company here in Ottawa I work with, they can't figure out why something is happening in their business, right? They've got data that shows that lead flow is down. But that's not the most important metric for them. Is it down with their best leads or their worst leads? Is their conversion ratio going up? Is their size of the deal going up? So the data in isolation is useless unless they're looking at it in all those key components, that sales velocity formula that we looked at. And I think when you can create that alignment, the data becomes much more easily used, and we can drive successes like in legacy businesses I'm working with, oil and gas, mining, farming, to find places to increase their customers and increase their share of wallet in markets that are shrinking.
Yeah, we're starting to see in the UK, still early days, but you know, some CFOs being given the responsibility for all KPIs across the whole value chain because of the, you know, input and output precision and density thinking, you know, that a CFO might bring to the table. So it may be interesting to see over time, you know, where, you know, the data advanced analytics owners evolve to. It may not be with sales officers or CROs, you know, how many, you know, inputs that we have across the value chain. So it's going to be an interesting time. Malay, what's the question?
Thanks, Cindy. The next question is specifically to Colleen, and the question is, Colleen, in terms of your new book that you're working on, can you tell us more about the direction you're heading in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know what? It goes right to this Amazonification topic that we were discussing, and how the best customers are balancing customer centricity with sales velocity. So what I'm really fascinated is in the intersection here of companies who are driving sales process changes in a traditional way, you know, like let's look at a sales process and pipeline development and qualification, presentation, all those things, with customer engagement and the predictive index on our early warning loss system, or helping customers through the journey. You know, what does engagement mean? We're writing some sections on how to engage with the customer, the power of the people, and all of those things that we're finding that are being driven from companies like Amazon who are doing it well, and how that's affecting the B2B market in ways that we probably never expected. Because I honestly believe that Amazon and the B2C marketplace has had the biggest effect on B2B sales than anything else in the last few years.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, because the, you know, the personal experience with the blurred world that we live in, right, where personal and business is just kind of that blurry economy. Our expectations are there, and you know, it's interesting, you know, when you know, you send out an email or a text message, where people are expecting a response in a nanosecond, you know. So in sales, for sure, you know, having even, you know, intelligent agents that can drive that responsiveness, because
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're not there, but the expectation as a human is really on kind of running on all cylinders. It's so true, so true.
Yeah.
Thank
You know,
you.
I say to audiences and customers all the time, like the way I buy shoes and jeans online is now the way I expect to buy multi-million-dollar, you know, investment portfolios, computers, phone systems, right? You know, and just as our buyers are getting younger and younger, and they come into the workplace as more digitally native than I certainly did, you know, there's no slowing down this pace of change. And so it's so important for leaders, you know, to get behind some even incremental small changes and adoptions of data, AI in their workplace, because if they don't, then they're just going to be left behind.
Yeah, there's lots of research on the nomadic millennials, because they move in and they don't have the same speed and velocity they're used to, and they're just not comfortable, right? Like, where is my virtual experience? You know, so they bring the ideas, but they want them now. So, you know, if there's companies that are really serious about this will, you know, really have to take this to heart. You know, yeah. Okay, Malay.
All right. We do have time for one more question, it seems. So I'm going to share that. And this one, I think, ties into what you were talking about earlier, Cindy. The question is, can you share an example of how any of your clients are approaching AI in sales? And I think you started to talk about this, so maybe you can lend some color.
Sure. So first point we see that we've learned is AI is very much in terms of enablement, a mid-market or a large enterprise play, mainly because you need the density and the velocity of data. It's, you know, highly predicated on data sets that are, you know, it's pretty significant. So I think that's, you know, point number one. In terms of how the executives, if I kind of look across the client portfolio, are coming in, they're coming in, one, because they want to achieve a higher win rate. They absolutely have to grow top line revenue. And so the pressure points that we've already talked about is kind of the driving emphasis. They naturally care about productivity of their sales force, and they can see that it's getting harder and harder to mine the gems. And so what the AI solution is allowing them to do is to basically predict an outcome based on all of the potential win patterns in a particular opportunity cycle, and rank them, you know, strategically in terms of what are the best pathways versus the, you know, lower optimal pathways. So that discovery, you know, it doesn't matter which client or which industry, as long as you're B2B and you have sufficient sales volume, you can benefit. Clearly, everybody in sales, and myself being a former senior sales executive in 2 large enterprises, you know, I've always wanted to be able to simulate the future. So, you know, these tools allow you to simulate your forecasts and sort of de-risk maybe another way, right? We always discount, you know, we go to the CFO discounts our numbers, blah, blah. But being able to have that simulation capability is very, very powerful. I think the other thing is that people have come to the realization, I mean, we're all getting very tired of the old rule of thumb. The top 20% overachieve their plan. They make up for the middle tier not making their plan, and that the 10% that aren't on plan, period, we move them out. And, you know, so we have often in sales organizations 20, maybe 25, sometimes it's 30% headcount turnover in a lot of these industries. And I don't think I've never believed for a nanosecond that a lot of that was driven by human performance, Colleen and Malay. I've always felt that a lot of the gaps were in the process. And I'm happy to say AI can basically equalize the distribution of good coverage scientifically. And so I think we're going to see, you know, some real progression there. You know, clients are increasing their win rates in terms of our summer clients by 10 to 15%. Other clients are finding better coaching methods. We're also teaching them to be better data discovery artists, right? Because if you think about the evolution of sales, we had to train so many sales professionals on how to migrate from a transactional conversation being led by a product to really listening. And we spent so many years, probably about 10 years of research and training to say you need to change the conversation so 80% of it's discovery and maybe 20% in that time in the hour is you peddling whatever your wares might be. So we've kind of mastered, I believe, although some companies would maybe are still struggling with that product centricity versus customer centricity. And now we're faced with, we have to be sharper than ever. And that also means, being more comfortable with data, analytics, statistics, math, additional disciplines that maybe haven't been the cornerstone of a sales professional in the past. So, I know that's kind of, a mixed conversation, but all the clients, that are pursuing this, they know that to achieve a competitive advantage, if they don't start getting into the AI game early, they will be left behind. There's no question that Amazon is where it is because of their incredible analytic and algorithmic investments they've made year over year over year over year, with every data element being taken into account and continuing to create a psychographic profile on all the modalities that they have, and that's very powerful. So we're going to see an evolution of more data and open source data, and honestly ecosystems coming together, to bring value. I believe now people need to understand the customer's data and where they want to go with their data in order to make sure that their solution is fitting into that data strategy. That's very new for salespeople. Salespeople never go in usually into understanding the client's data strategy. And there's ways of bringing best practices. This is what we're doing, and start having different dialogues in areas that traditionally, you're bringing more technology leaders to bear. Obviously, larger accounts do this well, more so, but the mid-market, those are the kinds of new ways I think they really have to think harder to really stay innovative and top of mind.
Thank you, Cindy. That was most helpful. So that brings us to closure. I am going to say a couple of quick words before we run out of time. Thank you, everyone who has been with us throughout this webinar. A quick word on SalesChoice. As Cindy already mentioned a while back, we are an AI predictive and prescriptive analytics platform wherein, as an app available on App Exchange for Salesforce users, we sit on Salesforce, analyze your data set to predict and tell you which opportunities have a higher likelihood of closing and you should be focusing on, and which opportunities you should avoid wasting your time and money on, and therefore save on cost of sales. What we do differently, however, is in addition to this, we also tell you why opportunities are in a good or bad shape so that you can take corrective action and make contextual decisions, which is so important when you're using an AI software that normally gives you insights without explaining you why you're getting those insights. We also have built-in layers to allow you to see data completeness levels in your Salesforce adoption, as well as how the reps' activities with both opportunities and accounts are influencing your not only the relationships, but also the odds of winning every single deal. So it's a lot packed into a software, and we'll, of course, be happy to take you through each of those features. If you're curious, we have been acknowledged for our innovation by multiple analysts as well as through multiple awards. We also have developed an AI readiness toolkit, and this is important because many institutions we find are not ready to use AI even though they want to. So how do you get there? What are the questions you must answer, and how do you prepare and get set to position yourself at a corporate level, at a strategic level, to make sure you see success with any AI that you use, whether SalesChoice or anything else? And that's something we can always come in and help you with. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. Our AI Predictive World Forum is available online at the link on your screen, where you will be able to see a lot more videos podcasts, white papers, each of them incredibly informative and resourceful to help you from a variety of viewpoints. When it comes to AI and when it comes to organizational growth, with a particular emphasis on sales, but also things that are useful for CFOs, CIOs, CEOs, and so on. Do join us also at the AI Directory platform. In case you have not heard about this, this is a platform we co-launched with IT World Canada and CATA Alliance to bring together all stakeholders in the AI ecosystem in one place. And you will find both companies and individuals in the AI domain from China, US, Canada, of course, and we are always expanding. So more and more regions come into play. So thank you very much. If you would like to address any of us or reach out to us, please do so. The email is mentioned on your screen. I would like to thank especially you, Colleen, for the time you spent here with us and for the insights that you shared. It was absolutely wonderful hearing them.
My pleasure. It was really great to be on the call. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, Cindy, as well. This video of the webinar recording will be available online in about a week's time, wherein you can, of course, refer back to the discussions that we had today. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure having all of you here and wish you a great rest of the week. See you and bye-bye.